Hello, Canteeners, and welcome to episode 74 of Culper's Canteen Cup. We got a lot of exciting stuff to share with y'all today, and we're hoping that Josh doesn't go too far off the deep end on this one. A couple of topics. Josh is looking at me like I'm crazy, but he'll know soon enough. I want to kick it straight to Roger for a very important announcement about Culper's Canteen Cup. If you haven't already seen it on Facebook, so Roger, man, take it away. Tell him what's up.
Well, Luke finally got off his ass and got our website up and running. So you can go to www.culperscanteencup.com. You should see our episodes up there as far as the podcast goes. You'll see our videos on there. It's got all the archive. Towards the bottom, you'll see some of our social media posts, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter. And at the very bottom, and we're working to get that moved, as far as placement goes. But we've actually got a blog page now. So on our blog page, myself and Luke and Josh would go in there from time to time and just kind of post some random things of whether it's something that we're thinking about, something we saw that was pretty neat, or something that sucked, or whatever it is, but a bunch of random stuff. So be sure to go there, check it out. Share the website with your buddies. I think we've got some folks from China, which I was man, that was like immediate. We had a bunch of visitors from the U.S. and then boom, all of a sudden we had the two visitors from China. We've got like one from Ireland and two from Costa Rica. So I don't know exactly who's listening to us in Costa Rica, but pretty interesting. But it should be a good time, good way to share some information for us, a better way for us to engage with everybody out there. I know right now it's kind of like Trump's old platform where it's kind of one way. You can't really go back and forth. But as they roll out additional features with the website, we should be able to roll out some different ways to engage. So I think Josh put some blogs up there. I know I got a couple up there, and Luke's got a couple that he's crafting out there. So definitely go take a look. Leave us some feedback. Our email is still up and running. C3@culperscanteencup.com. So feel free to either hit us up on the webpage, hit us up on the Gmail there, or heaven forbid, text one of us and let us know some of your thoughts. But good job, Luke, on the website. I guess some of the we'll jump right into it. Some of the big news over this past week since our last recording. So Jussie Smollett, right? Jussie Smollett found guilty on 5 of the 6 charges. So I don't know, Josh, thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that French actor, Juicy Smoulier, as Dave Chappelle called him, guilty on 5 of 6 charges. They read something today where one of the jurors came out, didn't identify themselves, but they came out and said they would have found him guilty on the 6th charge as well, except that the prosecution, the way it was worded, it was confusing. So they decided to, quote, feel like they were doing Juicy a favor by not finding him guilty on that final and sixth charge. So, but all 5 of those charges that he was found guilty on, those are all felony level charges. So now it's going to come down. One, I'll be honest, I was shocked that that a jury that the jury of his peers there pulled from that area actually found him guilty. I've written Chicago. I've written that city off the map for a very long time. But it's good to see that the justice system still works. As imperfect as it still works. You've got Juicy is guilty, Kyle is at home hanging out, and we'll see how the Ghislaine Maxwell trial goes. But right now, man, it's been a good run for justice. I don't know, Luke. I'll ask you this: do you think? So each one of the counts that Smoulier was found guilty for carries a maximum 3-year jail sentence. Do you think he's going to see any jail time at all? And if so, how much? Or do you think it's just going to be time served? Here's some fines and community service, parole, probation, and that's going to be it.
I think the latter. I don't see him serving any jail time. I don't know how that process works from here. I guess they moved the sentencing or whatever, but I can see some, legal stuff going back and forth on that one. And with him not serving any time, maybe fines, definitely community service, like you said. I don't see him serving any time. Hope I'm wrong. I don't know. I mean, it's so humiliating. I know in these people's minds, Hollywood people's minds, he's not humiliated in the least. Even though he knows what he did, we all know what he did. Most of us knew what he did when the facts started kind of rolling out, 4 or 5 days after. I mean, he knew what he did, but I guarantee that guy feels no remorse for what he did. And he just lives on a different planet. But it's just so humiliating. He will be a punchline. He already is a punchline. I mean, you got to wonder if Dave Chappelle's special. I mean, I know jurors are supposed to be like, oh, I don't know anything about this. But you got to wonder if they did see Dave Chappelle's special. If a lot of people who, live in Chicago, especially on the rougher sides, have seen that and been like, this guy is a joke. So he's sentenced to being a joke for the rest of his life. And in my opinion, that's enough for me. He's a joke. He's a punchline. He's an idiot. He's a cautionary tale, hopefully, for a lot of people. And I think that's sentence enough. So I'm not even going to wish jail time on the guy. Whatever, man. The guy is. It's funny when you go through it. I'm thinking of Chappelle's special, and it's just it's funny. So I think justice is served. Real quick, point of order. Yeah, it was on me to get the website up and running. That is true enough. And I had a clever, shrewd strategy. Very simple. Delay until it just drove Roger absolutely nuts. He couldn't take it anymore. So he just went in there and set it up like a good sergeant major would. So those are my thoughts on Smoulier.
See, I wasn't even going to say anything. I wasn't even going to say anything.
Well, Roger was going to give you all the credit.
We're just hoping that, and I haven't even followed through on putting up any blog posts. I was so excited about it and putting up some news, but the guys have already started. They've just jumped in with both feet, and then www.culperscanteencup.com. Go there, put it in your favorites. I know a lot of y'all go to Drudge Report every day. Maybe some of you go to Ground News. Hit our site in there, man. Maybe you'll see a story in there you didn't see on those other sites, or maybe get the take that you want. So, Roger, what else you got for us, man?
Well, one thing, Jussie Smollett, the dude wins, right? He wins no matter how this thing turns out, because, who knows if this guy ever does any jail time, which he should. When you look at whether it was done for his career or political in nature or whatever, all the motives, probably several different motives with this thing. But at the end of the day, the guy, when this is all said and done, he's going to have some book deal. He's going to be more famous or infamous now than he ever was. I'd never even heard of the dude. I mean, I guess maybe because I just didn't watch the show. But he's a household name now, right? So no matter how this thing plays out, you give it, you give it a year, you give it 2 years or beyond. The guy comes out with a book deal. You're bad press is good press. Any press at all is press, and the fact that he was a no name. That dude will be back around in the circuits. Whether it's just like Cuomo. I mean, these guys, they come back around again. And whether it's, in a good way or a negative way, or maybe it's just a tell-all book or whatever. I mean, the dude's going to win. So that's, what are we doing here?
So what we need to do is go into Lubbock, Texas on Broadway Street and say I got jumped by 2 Biden supporters saying this is Biden country. And the cup will be a household name.
I think that's probably the best idea you've had on this show yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious.
Well, that is the lighter side, taking it to a little darker news, and we kind of touched on it a little bit with the blog. And I think Josh actually posted something out there earlier on it, but we had the tornadoes that hit Kentucky and I think a couple of states around there, right? And it's, I think right now I'm reading 74 dead, more than 100 still unaccounted for. And you see some of these towns, like my wife is from that area. And you see some of these towns like the candle, I think it was a candle factory. Have you guys seen like the before and after, like the aerial they did of the, this was the warehouse, dude, that thing is like gone. I mean, it wasn't even like a little bit damaged. That whole thing was wiped out. But I think Josh is going to have some info, maybe something that we do either charity wise or because he brought up a good point. It's it's always tough when you look at it from the kids' perspective. Because adults, I mean, hey, we're grown-ups, right? Things happen, good things, bad things. You push through. You celebrate the good. You hope you have more good than bad at the end of the day, and all you can hope for is your health. Which obviously with 74 dead and 100 still missing, I mean, some of that's gone. But you look at it at any time of the year, it's bad. But I mean, man, you're going to have kids out there that Christmas is right around the corner. And it's heartbreaking to sit there and say, because I know this time of year, especially for us, we've got our tree up and you can see Josh's Charlie Brown tree behind him, but most families probably already have their Christmas trees up. They've got their presents out there and, they're doing the whole, like my dad used to do. Hey, here's your gift. Anybody want to open your gift up right now? Let's, we'll open up a little early. Like, yeah, Dad. No, put it back under the tree. So, you got families doing all that kind of stuff and the kids are excited. And, for a lot of these families, won't even have a Christmas. I mean, thankfully, a lot of them will be alive. Again, they're 74 dead, and probably going to be some more from that. But that's that's truly the heartbreaking piece of it, because it is, generally speaking, a time when most people come together. I think most of us individually go out and do what we can, whether it's charity wise or just helping. And Josh is a little bit less of an asshole around Christmas time. I think just on Christmas Day, he's a little bit less of an asshole than he is normally. So you kind of feel bad for the kids. But here's the flip side of this, and this is what kills me. So it's already a tragedy what happened. Some of those families will never recover. I mean, I can only imagine, and I don't know when it comes to like the candle factory and this and that. I don't know what type of insurance they have, and who knows it. They may have been hourly employees, and at the end of the day, if they're not working, they're not getting paid. And like most families, I mean, hey, you can only go so many weeks before you've got bills to pay. So some of those families will probably never recover, or it could take years to recover. But the FEMA secretary comes out, or the FEMA director comes out, and you know what she blames it on? Climate change, right? I hear that, and it takes away the seriousness of what actually happened. When you look at what the families are going through, when you look at the devastation, the homes, the jobs, the land, this and that, and then you've got the FEMA director saying that tornado was due to climate change. It just discredits the whole thing, and even NPR has already come out and been like, you know what, you can talk about flooding and this and that. And he's like, they're saying you can loosely tie that to climate change, like the tornado thing. Not a chance. It's just impossible to make that correlation. But to her credit, I was trying to give her a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. What I did was I went to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration page, and I pulled up historical data on the amount of tornadoes in the United States. So starting in 2011, 1,691 tornadoes, and I'll just take it all the way to now to 2020. And they had 20 years. I only did 10. 938, 906, 886, 2015, 1,177, 2016, 976, 1429, 1126, 1517, and 1075 in 2020. I don't see any increase. And this goes across for the 20 years, and you can actually take it out 30, 40, 50 years or whatever. So I guess I'm just not seeing that correlation with climate change and the amount or the frequency of tornadoes, because it looks roughly right around 1,200 is the average. This year we're down. Last year we're up a little bit over it. 2018 we were down, then kind of up, then down. So I'm not sure you can attribute that to climate change at all. And it kills me because they throw out these, everything's climate change. Everything's, climate change, Green New Deal. And, just like with inflation, it's like nothing is based on fact anymore. It's like they just say what they want to say, what they think that you want to hear. And that's just what you're supposed to believe. I mean, it's actually incredible. And I'll throw it to you, Josh, because I think you were talking a little bit about the charity piece of it. But, what's your thoughts on, one, the FEMA director itself? The farthest thing from her mind should have been climate change, right? Maybe you address, hey, this is what FEMA is going to do right now. Because one of the tough things, and I think that you're going to talk about a little bit, is with the charities, because you already have scammers that are coming out. And you have folks like us and some of our listeners, and I think some of our listeners are actually from the area, But the tough part is like, I want my money to go directly to those people on the ground. I don't want it to go to an organization that is going to get funneled down through. And then by the time they take their 5% and this 7%'s gone and this overhead percentage is gone, well, out of every dollar, 20 cents makes it to the family or whatever. It's like, hey, you know what? I wouldn't mind buying Christmas presents or a tree or whatever it is directly for the individuals there. So, give me your thoughts on, the FEMA director and then just the whole disaster in itself.
So I'll touch on the FEMA director real quick. The only thing that should have come out of the FEMA director's mouth, as you said, is here's what FEMA is doing right now to help the people impacted by these tornadoes, in Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, and Missouri, and in Illinois. That's the only thing that she should have talked about. Leave the politics to the politicians. It drives me nuts when you see these political appointees of these organizations that are not supposed to be political. They were not supposed to be political. I'll use the FBI as an example. You were there to serve the American people. You should be apolitical. That's why one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of these people being political appointees. But that's a different topic for a different show. And it ignores the data. It ignores history. People are like, oh, we've never seen this. It's unprecedented. Well, is it? Because in March 18th of 1925, 12 tornadoes touched down in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana. You know how many people it killed? It killed 747 people, injured over 2,000 more. So, and you think about the areas back then, and where it hit, they were less densely populated than the areas now. So when you're talking about, oh, this, the severity of these storms is unprecedented. No, it's not. It's not. But nobody is going to, take the time to do the due diligence. And we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show. Nobody's going to take the time to do the due diligence and go back and look and say, hey, that's not correct. You are factually not correct right now. And people, then people want to get up there and be like, oh, well, it's morally correct, to virtue signal. No, to be morally correct, you need to be factually correct. And we don't have that. We don't have that anymore. I don't know if you saw I forget who posted it. It might've been Jack Pacific or somebody else, but they posted an article from it was from a lawsuit and against Meta, the metaverse, Meta Facebook, or whatever. And they came back and they were talking about fact checkers writ large for the Facebooks. And they come back and Facebook literally said that the fact checks that you see on Facebook are protected. Why? Because they are opinions. It was like, hold up. So you were literally admitting that your fact checks are opinions and not actual facts. Okay, thank you. So anyway, that's what I got to say on the FEMA director and just there was their ilk in general. As far as the as far as the charity stuff goes, yeah, and you guys already know this. We've been chatting with them. We've had some former guests that were that have been impacted by this. I can't remember the exact episode number, but Ryan and Kristen King, titled episode "Fit for a King," and the Satterleys with All Secure. They were directly in the path of these storms and have been impacted from them. They in true form, they're not accepting any donations or anything like that because they have what they need and they're good, and there's a lot of folks who are a lot worse off. But talking to them, we wanted to make sure that we got, as Roger said, identified a charity or two that is not going to take their 5-10% cut, and for every dollar you donate, by the time it actually gets to the person who needs it, it's only 20 cents. So we have that. They passed us some information. I don't have it all kind of compiled right now, but once we figure out what we're going to do, we'll get it posted up onto to our social media, and you can reach out directly to that organization and donate if you so choose. And but yeah, it's, like you said, man, it's tragic any time of the year. But especially around the holiday season, there's a lot of folks, there's lives lost, and there's a lot of folks whose lives are changed forever, and there's also a lot of kids out there who aren't going to wake up on Christmas morning, to gifts and presents and have that joy. And there's a lot of folks, just, I mean, simple things, people without power, those Christmas dinners that they were planning on making, they don't have a way to make them now. So anyway, yeah, we'll get that posted up. You can reach out to them, donate if you so choose to, and everything. But man, just everybody out there, we'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers, and we'll try and hopefully folks will reach out to help. So
Maybe throw it up on our blog. Do like a another post with like the links or something like that.
yeah, we can do that. I went in and added some of the small businesses that we've highlighted in the past, kind of, the beginning of this thing. I omitted some of the businesses that went full woke, in the interim, so they can get bent if they still listen to us. You know who you are. So you know who you are. I won't name names. So yeah, man. So Luke, what's
Mm-hmm.
what you got?
Well, before we tackle the big bear in the room, I want to give a couple of thoughts on climate change data and stuff like that. Listening to you guys talk reminded me of a conversation I actually had with a NASA meteorologist. And I might have told, I don't know if I've told this story on the show or not, but I was unfortunate enough to have to go to an exercise in Indiana and Camp Atterbury, where for some reason they were saying they needed a CI guy there. That was back when I was a CI guy, and there was nothing for me to do. And it was 12-hour shifts. There was nothing scripted in the exercise. There was nothing to do. And when I tried to invent something to do, they didn't want to hear it. So I sat next to the weather officer, the SWO, and the weather officer was a reservist out of Houston, who was a NASA meteorologist. And first he explained what a meteorologist was. I thought it was that guy on the news that points at the green screen and says the clouds are coming in and whatever. No. A real meteorologist is a physicist, is an actual scientist with PhDs and stuff. I mean, these guys are really smart. And the NASA meteorologists, they're there to for takeoff and landing to try to actually predict the weather. So we would talk for 12 hours a day, and he's just grilling him. And we got around to climate change at one point. And I was like, so what's up with climate change? He goes, it's all data manipulation. It's stuff we've talked about before. If you're saying the right thing, your lab is going to get the funding. That's all there is to it. The same with AIDS research back in the day versus cancer research. If you were focused on AIDS research, you were going to get a lot of federal funding. These days, if you're focusing on climate change, and you're going to get that federal funding. So I was like, well, how do they, give me an example of how they manipulate data? And he said, well, when you're averaging temperatures between two places, let's say between Phoenix, Arizona, and Tucson, for instance, there are not, little weather or thermometers every 2 feet. So you just take the reading to all those and then average it between the two. It doesn't work that way. There may be 20 miles between two monitoring stations. So in order to find the average between those two monitoring stations, you can run it through 6 accepted, count them, 6 different algorithms. And what these data scientists do is they'll run it through all 6, and they'll pick and choose the algorithm that gives them the highest temperature or the lowest temperature, or whatever fits, whatever data point needs to fit their narrative. So that's a, you got to be careful with, like Josh was saying, facts versus opinions. And Jack Posobiec, what he said, about the fact check on it's actual opinion. Facts are tricky things because scientists will come at you with a fact, but it's extrapolated from 6 different algorithms to give them the one they want. And you've got to remember with another thing with tornadoes, right? I mean, tornadoes happen all the time. They happen in the ocean. They may not kill anybody because it, hit in the middle of Montana or Wyoming, Idaho, somewhere like that. But now we have more accurate ways to measure that there were tornadoes. There was a tornado at this particular time, whereas in 1905, it was around the time that the U.S. as a nation started recording temperatures and weather and stuff like that. They didn't have that technology. So now be very suspicious when you're like, well, there are more tornadoes now than ever. Well, we know about more now than ever. I'm just saying it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing. Facts, truth, science, it's very tricky, as we all know, with the COVID-19 pandemic that's hit us really hard. Now, one quick thing, couple quick things before I kick it to Roger. I've made a resolution, early New Year's resolution, to refer to poop or SHIT as Fauci. I took a Fauci this morning. Took a nice Fauci. Oh, you're full of Fauci. I'd encourage our audience to do the same thing. I think we can start a trend here. So again, before the bear in the room, Roger, why don't you give us your thoughts on good old Chris Wallace out at Fox News?
What took him so long? Right. I mean, the first thing that came up was, maybe because of the whole Cuomo thing. And I think now one of the former producers on the show, they've got sexual assault allegations against him. So it's, my first thought was, oh, they're going to try to plug him into some other primetime slot or whatever. But I guess he's going to their CNN streaming service or whatever, CNN Plus. But it's funny because even reading the posts on there, and I didn't get on there and comment because I don't know the guy personally. I don't care for his politics. He's a registered Democrat. The guy, he's admitted, he's voted Democrat for basically ever. And people are like, yeah, that liberal, piece of crap can, or a piece of Fauci can, go back to where he belongs and yada, yada, yada. And people are like, well, how do you know he's liberal? It's like, dude, how do you know he's not? I mean, the guy has come right out and watching any of the debates, it was pretty clear. But anyway, back to him. I didn't really care for so much of his point of view on Fox, and not just because he was a liberal or whatever, but for as much as he was the type that on one hand would sit there when he was amongst the group of other Fox reporters and commentators and criticize other journalists for not asking the hard questions and not following up the hard questions. But then when he himself was doing an interview, he wouldn't he wouldn't follow up. Right? Like if he was talking to Psaki or if he was talking to Biden, because that's the one thing that pisses me off. And we've said this several times, but that's the one thing that pisses me off with watching the White House press briefings. And I've got to the point now where I can't even watch them because there is no follow-up. And sometimes you can see some of the reporters are getting tired of it. And so they try to ask follow-ups and then she just moves on. And it's like, hey, pool of journalists, they're there to answer your questions. If you guys and gals are more forceful about it, make them answer the questions. And that was my problem with Wallace is he would get on there and he would get on Tucker Carlson or any of these other Fox News shows late at night and talk about, oh, well, they threw softballs and this and that. But then when it was his turn, he would do the same thing. And I know why. I get it. Because if you get on there and you go off script or you ask something hard and you keep pressing, you're worried that you're going to lose your access. Right? That's what he's worried about. The press pool at the White House, that's what they're worried about. That if they continue to press Psaki and make her answer some of these follow-up questions or just look dumb and not answer any of them at all, that they'll be uninvited to the press room. Right? They saw what happened with Trump and what's his name? What's his name? I forget his name. Acosta, like, oh, I want that to happen to me or whatever. But, it's kind of funny because at one hand you were blasting Trump for doing it. And now you think the Biden administration will do it because I think they're finding out the Biden administration is worse than the Trump administration. One thing about Trump, like him, love him, hate him, whatever, that dude would get up in front of the microphone and he is going to talk until he is done. He is going to talk until every question that you have that you're going to think of, asking is done. You may not like the answer, but he's going to sit up there and talk. And you may not like his thought process or his frame of mind, but there's something very telling there because it's like growing up. And even in the Army, when we looked at having soldiers, and before this, we were shooting the crap a little bit about, soldiers that we had and how Luke had a bunch of problem soldiers that are now leaders, in the national security complex that we have. But, I always try to sit there when mistakes are made or decisions are made And I just want to understand what led them to that decision. And as long as I can logically get there, I normally don't have a problem with it, right? As long as the outcome wasn't, somebody died or something like that. But as long as I can see where they went with this, I'm usually pretty good with it. It's like, okay, I get it. Maybe I wouldn't have made that same decision, but I see how you got to where you went. And I think I saw a lot of that, and that was why I was in favor of Trump. Was you definitely see his mind working, but the problem is everybody they couldn't see that. They couldn't get beyond. I just hate the guy. I just hate the guy. I hate the tweets, and I can't stand it. And so, no matter what he said, no matter what he did, it was going to be wrong. So, I'm reading some of the notes here. It's like, yeah, when you look at, um, Wallace going to, well, I don't know, maybe it's his retirement plan because, like you said, nobody watches CNN. Like, dude, I don't even know how. When you look at MSNBC and CNN, and you look at their like viewership number, like I don't even know how they are still on air. I mean, why do advertise? I guess Luke, you can answer this. I mean, why do advertisers continue to pay them money? There's no viewers there. I mean, they're not making it. You would literally be better off going on Fox News and spending your ad dollars there than dropping it on CNN, right?
Dude, you'd be better off going on. That's what I don't get. I don't get it either. I don't have an answer to you because you look at just the numbers, man, the ratings, the numbers. You'd be better off going to Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, Jack Posobiec, any what's his name? I'm forgetting his name. Blanking. Daily Wire guy.
Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro. Yeah, you'd be better off going to them because their numbers are higher. So I don't know. Maybe those guys all have scruples that they don't want to advertise for pharmaceutical companies because both on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, it seems like, man, a third of their commercial are pharmaceuticals. To me, that's what it seems like. But yeah, I'm with you, Roger. I don't have an answer for you on that one at all. Josh, you got one?
No, I don't have one because, like you said, you just go back and look at the numbers. I went and I looked at the numbers. It's been a couple of weeks, but I saw a tweet that compared, basically MSNBC's viewership to college football games. And there was literally more people that go to college football games in the United States than watch MSNBC. And it was like, how are they still on the air? Like, who is footing that bill? Yes, that attend college football games that watch MSNBC. And I was like, how are they still on the air? Like, I mean, who is footing that bill? Because, dude, you have a better chance of flying to Vegas. I mean, their money would be better spent flying to Vegas and betting all on black, one hand, everything, the whole pie. Like, I mean, it was just because
that's their business plan. we're not going to spend our ad dollars on advertising on CNN. We're just going to go to Vegas once a month on payday, and we're just betting on black.
I mean, that's just you look at the numbers again. You just go back to the raw data, and it doesn't add up. I don't know if man. I don't know if they're on that Soros teat or what. That's just keeping them on life support. But I don't see how they can sustain it. I just can't.
I think Fox News commercials are hilarious, man. Especially when you get just past prime time. It's hilarious. You can see the audience is watching. At least, I mean, I think it's all old people commercials. Every one of them, whether it's a pharmaceutical or a place for mom or whatever. Man,
dude,
I think they're hilarious.
It's all blue blockers and life alert, and everything. And
William Devane.
Yeah, I only see those every once in a while because I'm normally in my second REM cycle by that time. But yeah.
So I'm pulling up some of these ratings, and this is on Ad Weeks. They show from 4 to 11, and it's I'm not sure what they base this off of as far as the population base, but it's basically done in thousands of viewers. And dude, in every time slot from 4 to 11, Fox News, and I'm not plugging Fox News. I'm just telling you this is what the numbers show. They have more viewers than CNN or MSNBC combined in every single time slot.
Yeah.
Like with
it's crazy.
When you look at Fox News starting at Cavuto, Cavuto's their lowest show, and that's probably because it's at 4:00. People are still at work or whatever. 227,000, the 5, 344, then 286, 272, 381. Dude, you get down to CNN, like Don Lemon, 94, like 94,000 people.
Dude, there's high school football stadiums in Texas that seat more people than that. Like, it's crazy. It's
The
crazy.
highest they
And this
have
is
is Maddow at 251 for MSNBC, but Cooper 135, Blitzer 109, Paper Glue, whatever the hell that is, 66. CNN special, check the 11 o'clock hour, right? Gutfeld gets 323, CNN 69, MSNBC 39.
I personally don't even think Gutfeld's show is that good. I've tried to watch it a couple of times. It's not for me. But one thing, Josh, so you remember I told you guys I gave up Drudge Report a while back. I think during the election cycle, the last presidential election cycle, I gave it up probably in, I don't know, August, September. And I've recently gone back to Drudge because, like it or not, there are some headlines there that I don't see in other places. So Josh and I was like, hey, if y'all want a good laugh, check out the Drudge, top headlines above the banner. And it was night and day. Between one day, those top headlines were how bad the economy is. They're about inflation, all this stuff. Within 12 hours, well, a little more than 12 hours, I think the Biden administration had a meeting with some members of the media about coverage that the president is getting. And there were opinion pieces coming out saying, Biden's getting worse press coverage than Trump, which is crazy, but that's what was being said. The very next day, Josh, there were actual headlines. And it's not that Drudge is just putting out these headlines. I don't know what his agenda is, but there were headlines on how good the economy is. How come no one is noticing Biden's roaring economy? So my question to you, and we can get deeper into this, like the narratives, the news cycles, kind of what we were talking about before the show. My question to you is this just coincidence or is there something going on here?
It's 100% not coincidence. Absolutely not. And no one will ever convince me that it is. There is a concerted effort between the Biden administration, and I don't even say the Biden administration, I'm going to say the left and the media. It is not a secret that the left has, pulled the strings in the media for a very long time now here in the United States, and they continue to pull the strings. The media basically is doing exactly what they are told to do. They didn't even try and hide it. The Biden administration had a meeting with members of the media to, quote, they needed to put a positive spin on the economy because it was doing so bad. If the economy is doing really good, you don't have to spin it. You just report on it and say, this is what it's doing. But when you say, hey, we really want you guys to really, put a spin on this. Okay, well, that right there tells you all you need to know. And the media, being the good lapdogs they are, did exactly that. So use an example. So Kramer, right? That guy, he's a clown. He used to be good when he first came out. You're like, okay, he's, what he's saying makes sense. He's not, not a bad. So now keep in mind, what it came out a couple of days ago in the last week, inflation rose 6.8%. It is now the worst inflation in 40 years, right? 40 years ago, we were on the heel. We were coming out of the Carter administration. We were in the malaise, as Carter called it. Kramer, literally the same day on his show, and I quote, I don't think I've ever seen an economy this strong. You can't make this up. There on no planet, no financial expert, nobody who has, more than 5 brain cells and has passed second grade math would tell you that the worst inflation in 40 years equals a very strong economy, the strongest economy ever. Like it is truly clown world out here. And it's like Roger said earlier, you can't even question them on it because they just won't answer. They'll give you their, they'll give you their canned response, but that's it. That's all you're getting. They won't even have a discussion about it. And this is the maddening part. I mean, that right there is the maddening part, is they won't even admit it. I mean, everybody should be really happy because, their 4th of July picnic was 6 cents cheaper this year, according to Joe Biden. So I don't know why everybody's upset that, gas is still $3.20 a gallon. I mean, you save 6 cents at 4th of July. What are you bitching about? Ingrate. You know, but it's just the media is absolutely trying to protect Joe Biden, and that absolute potato, Brian Stelter, came out and was like, man, the media has been harsher on Joe Biden than they were on Donald Trump. Dude, you are high AF. You are high AF. There is no way in any universe that the media has been harder on Joe Biden than they were on Donald Trump. There's none whatsoever. And for anybody who plugs that, anybody who comes out and uses that talking point, is a complete ass clown. It just there's no way that anybody with any logic can tie those two together. So yeah, the media is absolutely complicit. They are doing the administration's bidding because I mean they're funded by the left. The left pays the
And
bills.
Roger's going to blow y'all's minds. He's going to blow y'all's minds with what he told us the other day. And it's like, well, yeah, it's one of those things where Roger texted it to us and we're like, yeah, of course I knew that, but it didn't come to the front of my mind. Roger just painted it to the front. But Josh, I do have something before Roger blows everyone's minds. I have something that you're going to agree with Joe Biden on. You ready to hear it?
Hit me.
Okay. So Chasen Buttigieg, I guess, I don't know. I'm going to call him Chasen Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg's husband is very upset with Joe Biden right now. Very upset. He aired his grievances on Snapchat or Instagram. I think it was Instagram for the world to see. He's very upset that Joe Biden is restarting student loan payments. So, yeah. So Chasen Buttigieg got on there and was like, no, thank you. Merry Christmas next, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. But I don't know why I used that accent either. I don't know why I did that. But do you agree with Joe Biden? I mean, should the student loan payments be restarted even in this horrible, horrible economy?
Yes. They never should have stopped. I'm sorry, dude, nobody is getting sympathy from me on the student loan thing. You took out a loan. You voluntarily entered into a contractual financial agreement. Pay your effing bills. That's all I got to say. You zero sympathy for me. We paid every dollar of my wife's student loans back. Like, I mean, dude, we were about to give it a name because damn things were around so long. So, no sympathy for me, man. You entered into a contract voluntarily. Pay your bills. So,
well, and that's the problem with a lot of that stuff is they don't realize that there are people behind that depend on that money, for their own income. It goes right back down to like with the renters and the mortgage payments and this and that. People just like to believe like, hey, this stuff just goes out to big business. 'Cause that's what they like to throw out there, just big business, right? Big evil corporate America, big evil corporations. It's just big business. You pay your money and it just goes out there to big business. And they don't realize that, hey, people's 401ks are based off this stuff. You've got revenue that comes in, you got earnings that come in, and it's like, hey, that same house that you go 90 days, 120 days, 5, 6, 7 months that you don't have to pay the mortgage on. Well, the owner of that, and I know several folks that are like this out here that they depend on that income. That's their job. They have 4 or 5 rental properties. Nothing, we're not talking about like, $100 million mansions. We're talking about 2, 3 bedroom homes. They have a couple of them, and that's their income. That's what they do. They manage those homes. And so people don't realize, like, hey, when you fail to pay that stuff, I mean, you're also, failing somebody or preventing somebody else from making their money to be able to pay their own bills. But they don't care because everything's about, well, hey, how do I get free stuff? Right. And that's what takes me back to the whole COVID thing. Man, it's never been about COVID. When it first came out, you had the 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever, flatten the curve. Okay, it was about COVID. Ever since then, once we started giving out the free stuff, once we started saying, hey, you can stay home, now you can work from home, now you can, you can school from home and this and that, it no longer became about COVID. You've got the political side of it, obviously, and then you've got the side that a lot of folks just don't want to go back to work. They don't want to go do the commute. And I get it. It's like, yeah, I would rather not commute. But that's not the point. It's not about COVID. So now people just come up with excuses not to go because they're scared of the office environment. They're scared of catching COVID again. They're scared of catching it the first time or whatever. And that's not, it's never what it's been about. And that's what kills me. And then going back to, with the Psaki and what Luke was talking about with the media, I think it goes back, because I asked myself again, I'm like, why would they do this? And I think it just goes back to access again. They're scared they're going to lose their access, but it really doesn't matter because you see it on Fox News all the time, right? There are hardly anybody on the left will go to Fox News for an interview because they're scared, right? They're scared they're going to be asked the tough questions. And I would say that the pieces that I watch on CNN or MSNBC, there tend to be quite a few Republicans that tend to go to that left side because they can articulate their argument. They can, they can debate. When you get a lot of folks on the, like with Kramer, right? Dude, I lost respect for him right during the Trump administration when he said, if Trump wins, the economy will crash and will never recover. I remember that.
Yep.
He said that night, right? Everybody
Yep.
was scared, and the market tanked for like a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever, and then boom, went through the roof. But these folks are scared to lose their access, but you don't even have access because you're reporting what they're telling you to report anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and here's the thing: they're not going to lose their access because Trump. The White House, they took away Jim Acosta's press pass, and what happened? They turned around and the court said they had to give it back to him. So they're not going to lose access. That's it. That's not even a possibility.
And going to, I'm glad that Luke actually prodded me here because he kept saying, I had some mind blowing stuff. I'm like, oh shoot. Like, was I drinking or, I couldn't remember exactly what it is, but it's the inflation. So, I think it was one of our recent blogs that we put out. Well, I guess they're all recent now since our website's all 4 days old, but, we did an article or a blog about inflation and, how this is going to happen 2-3 years from now, and maybe even sooner than. Inflation will taper off. It's going to happen. Okay. Our economy is going to adjust. Consumers will adjust. The supply chain will adjust. All of this stuff will adjust itself out and it'll come back to a norm. It may not go back to where it was during the Trump years, maybe even something close. Maybe it gets better. Who knows? But what I do know is that it's not going to remain sky high forever. It does come back down. It does normalize. The economy will adjust itself. And when that happens, the narrative that you're going to hear, and I tell you, mark my words, this is 13 December. So you can put this on your iPhone calendar. The administration is going to take credit for it. Hey, everything is great right now because of our policies. And everybody will forget that for an entire year, their policies were the reason that brought these problems on. The reasons that why we have inflation, right? The reason why prices are through the roof on everything. The reason why the supply chain is messed up. Now, I get it. Some things you don't necessarily, with the ships out at sea, could you have stopped all of those ships from having to sit out there and wait? Probably not. But you probably could have prevented a few more of them if, he wasn't on paternity leave for 3 months. Which, by the way, you can only do that on the government side, because if you did that for small business, we'd go broke because you can't afford to pay somebody, 3-4 months worth of leave without pay, or as far as revenue or whatever. But they're going to fix this thing, right? Or they're not going to fix it. It will come down and adjust itself. They'll take credit for it. People will forget about it, that they're the ones that got us into this in the first place. So, the example that I use was, it's like the firefighter setting the fire and then taking credit for putting it out. I mean, that's exactly what's going to happen. Josh, you see anything different?
No, no, and like Luke pointed out in the chat, there's two sets of rules. There's two sets of rules, and there have been for a very long time, and there will be for the foreseeable future. Trump exposed a lot of that. Well, he verified it for a lot of us. We knew it was there, and that's why the establishment vilified him. Both sides did. You know, they absolutely 100% vilified him. And then our favorite former Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, gave the Democrats what they wanted the other day, with really no visible political gain, for it. So I don't know. It's things aren't going well here at home, and you take one look at across the pond, and you know, it would depend. China's getting ready to. Xi Jinping has already come out and said that their timeline, their 2049 timeline, they're going to truncate that a little bit, and probably by 2025 they're going to look to reunify China and Taiwan. Putin's not waiting that long to reunify the former Soviet Union. He's going ahead and moving forward with his plans. Go ahead and take Ukraine as a whole, and we're gonna sit idly by and watch it happen, and we're just gonna hope that nobody's got ships to come across the Pacific or the Atlantic at some point, because isolationism it works. I mean, if you ignore the problem for long enough, it goes away, right? So I don't know once. I don't know how upset Hunter's going to be, or how Hunter's deals are going to go once Ukraine is gone. I guess he's going to have to deal with Putin directly to sell some more of his shitty art, and get 10% for the big guy. But yeah, so look back in the you guys follow like Flight Radar, the app, anything like that? You can go through and you can do like the last 30 days of air activity, like over the Black Sea, and man, you can see, dude, they got to get a JTAC over there to take charge of that or something, man. There's aircraft stacked up from like 10,000 feet to like 30,000 feet. It is absolutely insane. Everybody's just waiting for the big red horde to cross LD and start taking start annexing the rest of Ukraine. So I want to get Luke's thoughts. There's a whole bunch of stuff over Twitter, and a bunch of folks are there seem to be two camps because there's no moderates anymore. It's either folks want to crank up the Enola Gay and go after Russia, or folks want to move to Kansas and hope that it takes a big red horde a really long time to get to them. So I'll kick it over to Luke for his thoughts on what's going on right now in Crimea and the Donbass, and what's going to happen, and more importantly, Luke, what should be the U.S.'s role in this?
Wow, a lot to unpack. That's a Roger question. Well done. So Josh is he's two things. He's a button pusher and a line stepper. He's a habitual line stepper. So when we go back and forth in the text, man, Josh has a way of like pushing your buttons, like, well, I like pizza. Oh, so you eat pizza for every meal? That's what you do? You can live off pizza for the rest of your life. You can live oh my God, dude, that's not what I said. But I meet this with it's a nuanced thing. As we said, it's nuanced, and Josh agrees with that. And like Josh said, it seems to be there's two camps right now. Either the Doves and the Hawks. It seems like that's what we are, and there's no in between. But the God's honest truth is there's a lot of in between in this argument, or not even argument, in this issue. I'm very suspicious of all of this coming out right now. I'm not suspicious of the China thing at all. That's very straightforward in my book. What's going on in the Pacific with Taiwan and the man-made islands out there, I think that's been a long time coming. I don't think there's enough coverage on it. But this Russia Ukraine thing, there is no doubt that Russia is building up troops there. There's just no doubt at all. Anywhere between 150 to 200,000, I would guess, with a full accompaniment of vehicles, joint warfare, all that stuff. They're building up, but why the drum beats? Why now? I didn't see it when they took Crimea. I didn't see drum beats like this, not like this. It reminds me a little bit of, the lead up to 2003 in Iraq. I mean, a lot of the media mouthpieces seem to all be on the same page, with we got to do something. And I don't know. First of all, I'm just suspicious of it. Second of all, you're right, Josh. I'll let you touch on that later. Josh typed in a good point in the chat there. War is good business. But what Putin's doing, again, there are troops there. Russia, if you know anything about Russia, their strategic plan, their strategic objectives, since the dissolution of the Soviet Union was, number one, warm seaport. They have to have that. Permanent warm seaport. They've got one kind of close in Syria now, but that's a long way from home. Number two is halt the expansion of NATO. That's it. They cannot have NATO expanding. You saw them do an end run in Georgia back in the day. What year was that? I can't remember off the top. But when they invaded Georgia and took a little piece of Georgia, the country of Georgia, NATO
That was
basically
2008. They took
2008.
self-possession.
Okay, that's right. I should know that. Anyway, so they took a little portion, and part of the rules with NATO, no country can come into NATO that has a disputed territory within their own borders. So boom, Russia headed off Georgia joining NATO, because there was big talk of Georgia joining NATO back then. Now that Russia has taken Crimea and portion, definitely Crimea, Donbass is kind of up in the air, but Russia is issuing Russia state identification driver's license in Crimea. That territory is annexed. In Donbass, they're kind of doing the same thing, but it's a little bit more up in the air for a number of reasons. But boom, automatically, Ukraine says, no, Crimea is still part of us. So you are admitting you have a disputed territory. You cannot come into NATO. So Russia has accomplished something by taking Crimea, and that's Ukraine not coming into NATO. Ukraine going into NATO would be an absolute disaster for Russia, a strategic disaster for a number of reasons. Now, the Russians speak out both sides of their mouths when it comes to this. And I kind of brought this up, and like I said, it's nuanced, and we could probably talk about this for 4 to 6 hours. So I'm kind of boiling it all down. I hope everybody's following. But Russia says that, well, Crimeans, people that live in Crimea, right on the Black Sea, it's a beautiful place. I've been there numerous times. It's gorgeous. They love the Soviet Union down there. They really do. They still have statues of Lenin and Stalin in front of their government buildings. They never tore those down. They speak Russian. They do not speak Ukrainian. There's a slight difference, but they do speak Russian. All the Russians come there for vacation. They consider themselves ethnic Russians, not Ukrainians. So the Russian government says, well, those people have the right to self-determination. So they should definitely have their own country, for sure. But in the same breath, at the UN General Assembly, the Russians will say Kosovars have no right to govern themselves. They have no right to determine their own fate. They belong to Serbia. Always has been that way. Even though 99% of people in Kosovo are ethnic Albanians, don't consider themselves Serbs at all, never have. But Russia will play that both ends. They run a pretty slick game. They really do. Now, what's going to happen? This is what threw Josh into fits. I don't know what exactly is going to happen. I think they're going to move troops into the Donbass and annex that in the same very clear fashion that Crimea has been annexed. Will they keep going to Kiev? No, I don't. I do not think they will. Not in the short term. But what I said was, hey, how about this? And oh boy, Josh is going to jump on me because I do not think it should have been handled or Roger can jump on me if he wants. So he's always wanted to jump on me. But yeah, I got to smile. Okay. I do not think it should have been handled like Biden, like the news leaking out of the White House, where Biden's just like he's going to tell the Ukrainians just to cede the territory to the Russians. You don't telegraph that. You don't telegraph it. Okay. You sit down. There are different ways to handle these things without projecting weakness, or we're just going to give up. But one way to handle this would be very quickly, and it would require a Ronald Reagan-esque type effort. Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush-esque type effort to bring all these moving pieces together at once, give Russians that territory, say, nope, it's yours now, and then within a week, bring Ukraine into NATO. I mean, that's one way to do it. It'd probably result in war the same way Josh wants to go. No, I'm joking. But yeah, I mean, that would be one way to handle it. But I'm very wary of going into protracted conflict right now. I know that's not what you're arguing for, Josh, but a conventional hot war in that area, I know it's good for business. I know it's good for the, military industrial complex or whatever you want to call it. But I'm very wary out of the last, after what I've seen the last 20 years, I don't think a conventional conflict is going to turn out any better. So I've talked a lot and I do have more to say, but I'm going to kick it to Roger to maybe be more poignant and clarify.
No, that's, I think I've got the solution. We just bring Russia into NATO.
You know what? Hey, that's not a bad idea. I think somebody else mentioned that, dude. I mean, with the threat I'm seeing from China, like the threat over the next quarter century, I'm all for it. How about that? I'm all for it.
I mean, we have Turkey in NATO. Why not have Russia?
There's actually, I'm going to have to read this article later. Maybe I'll post it in one of our blogs because somebody, whoever this professor is, actually wrote some final report on should Russia join NATO. But no, I think, when you look at the whole Crimea thing, it's no wonder that they're building forces back up right now. Look who the president is. They have shown that they are going to take, the Biden administration shown that they are not going to take any aggressive or provocative or preemptive actions to prevent anything. And that's not just with Russia. That's also with China. There's a reason why China's speeding their thing up to 2025, right? And heck, according to Joe Biden in the White House, Joe Biden's running again for president. They put that out last week. He's going for 4 more years. Dude, there's no way. No way. We will shut this podcast down if that dude runs again for 4 more years.
Don't say that.
There's no way that guy
is in there.
No way that guy runs again in 4 years or 3 years or whatever it is. But they know who's in power because when you look at, I think Josh was saying this before, when you look at continuity, there's nothing better for continuity than like communism, right? You've got the same rulers in power for decades, forever. They just wait democracy out as we change through leadership. You got guys like Trump, you say, hey, you know what? Let's just ease off a little bit. We'll play the game here for 4 years, maybe 8, 7, because you'll have a lame duck year. And when the next administration comes in, whether it's a weak Republican or a weak Democrat, hey, we can ramp things back up because they'll still be in power. And that's exactly why they're doing it. I think it's a brilliant move for them when they took Crimea because it does prevent that NATO piece. Although I think there were some issues anyway with the voting with support for Ukraine coming to NATO. So, maybe they were just going to try to hedge their bets a little bit. But, it's an interesting piece. Like, hey, do you give up Crimea to bring in NATO? And if you or to bring Ukraine into the NATO, of course, if you do that, you're basically saying, hey, we're looking for war. But then again, if you push back, you're looking for war as well. I mean, what kills me is they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing when they took Crimea. And I think when you look at Nord Stream 2 and you look at this green energy stuff, this is going to hurt Europe. It's going to hurt the EU, and it's going to put Russia in a greater position of power because one of the things that you have to do is you have to make that area not dependable on Russia, right? And when you look at energy, I mean, they control most of that area when it comes to like a lot of your natural gas and that. I mean, they just shut it. Hey, we just shut it down. Hey, gets pretty cold in December, right? Gets pretty cold in January. They tend to have a much greater bargaining chip, come the winter months than they do the summer months. And so when you look at with everybody going green energy throughout Europe. That's the big buzzword now. Well, guess what? Russia's not going green. Guess what? Neither is China. We really haven't talked to the energy piece over there with China yet, but with the Russian area and that area, that's going to be huge. And the more and more the EU and Europe go to that model, the stronger Russia's going to be. And they'll just simply wait out whoever the president is. If we still need to do a segment on Trump, because I tell you, I still don't think he's going to run, but you're starting to hear a lot more rhetoric that he sounds like he's running. I mean, it's and even who was I listening to today? One of the Republican leadership was on TV, and they were like, yeah, he's pretty much going to determine whether he is the, GOP primary or not. So, Josh just posted if he runs, Democrats win. I don't know. I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that happen between now and then. Again, that could be a whole nother episode. But regardless, if you get another Trump type in there, they'll just wait him out. They'll wait him to 3 to 4 years before they instill their policy. I mean, it goes back to why China's speeding up. Looking at Taiwan, I'll throw this over at Josh. I know he's got some more to say on Ukraine, and I'll kick it to him with Taiwan. So I did not realize this, and maybe it's just because I hadn't paid that close attention to it, but you talked about China and taking Taiwan happens by 2025, probably without one gunshot, one round being fired. Only 13 countries recognize Taiwan's independence. Right now, before looking into any of this stuff, I was like, oh, it's probably your typical players. It'll be the United States. It'll be the United Kingdom, maybe France, Germany. Oh, no, it's none of them. I mean, it's all these small podunk dinky countries that it really doesn't matter. But it's like, we don't even recognize them as an independent country. That kind of blew my mind a little bit today. And then 3 or 4 days ago, Nicaragua, they just cut ties with Taiwan and said, oh, by the way, we're running, our diplomatic efforts through China. So then he's saying they can't come into NATO either. Do you just make everybody NATO? That's how you do it. Everybody, you're on NATO. It's like, I don't care if you want to be a part of Russia. I don't care if you want to be a part of NATO or not. You're part of NATO now. That's just the way it is. But it's when you look at like what's going on with Taiwan, I mean, and that's a totally different, strategy there where they have basically just said, hey, we're going to convince, not even formally, we're going to convince, all the countries to just verbally not accept, Taiwan's independence. And then we're going to just start to change that to where, hey, diplomacy just runs through Beijing for everything. And so then now you're not even dealing with Taiwan and their government. You're dealing with China and their government on matters that relate to Taiwan, which of course brings in their national military strategy change in 2017. And then the new PIPL they just passed that takes into effect in November, which is going to impact a lot of businesses. But you sit there and say, man, they're going to take this country and not even have fired one round. And then before I throw it to Josh here for it. So what happens with the leadership in Taiwan? I mean, do you think does China just say, hey, screw it, we're just going to continue doing what we're doing and just leave you in place because nobody cares, nobody's listening to you? Because, I mean, eventually you could just phase them out. I mean, if the entire world is coming through Beijing for diplomacy and diplomatic relations, I mean, you just say, hey, you know what? You guys can think you're the rulers. You can think that you're the elected leaders, but everything's coming through us. So what happens with that leadership there? And do you think they ever take any military actions or more aggressive actions to push them out?
In Taiwan, no, they're not going to push them out. They'll push them out once they take Taiwan. They don't need to push
has it already happened?
I don't think it's already happened. They're just slowly marginalizing Taiwan to where Taiwan's not going to have any partners, formal partners left, right? So we have no formal treaty. Like with Ukraine, we have no formal treaty with Ukraine. To protect them or to do anything for them. Taiwan's the same. We don't even recognize them as their own country, which is absolutely insane. Especially considering the one sole producer of microchips for vehicles and other things is sitting on the island of Taiwan.
So real quick before you go farther, let me read this list off of countries that recognize Taiwan as a sovereign country. Guatemala, Honduras, Haiti, Paraguay. You can scratch Nicaragua, Aswatini, Tuvalu, Nauru, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Belize, Marshall Islands, Palau, and the Vatican. Sorry.
No, it's all good. No, yeah. So I think they'll just slowly do it. So as far as Nicaragua, I mean, it makes sense why Nicaragua came out and was like, "Yeah, we're cutting ties with Taiwan, and we're hitching our cart to China." Have you guys heard about the new canal? So it's called the Nicaragua Canal. They're looking at basically replicating the Panama Canal in Nicaragua. And guess who's doing it? Guess who's funding it? China. So, if you wonder why a country pivots and all of a sudden starts supporting China, all you got to do just pull up the Belt Road Initiative and take a look and see if they're on the list. Because chances are they are, and it's a lot of it's through the promise of money and resources, from China through that. One of the problems is that the China's over promising and under delivering, which a lot of countries are finding out. Some of the first ones to jump on that bandwagon are quickly finding out that China shows up, takes all the resources, builds a port, and then that nice new port. Oh no, you don't get to use it because this is now a Chinese military facility, and we're going to garrison troops here, so you can't run your sampans and pleasure boats through here. And they bring in Chinese workers to do all the labor tasks, which leaves the host nation folks just kind of asked out. So anyway, so that's that. As far as Ukraine goes, yeah. So I don't think a hot war in Ukraine is a good idea. I generally don't think land wars in Asia are a good idea at all. I mean, we've all seen The Princess Bride a few times. But I'll say this: I do like Luke's idea of, okay, fine, just go ahead and give him the territory, and then you're automatically into NATO. I thought about it. I still have problems with it, and I'll get to it in a minute. And Luke's like, "Oh no, here comes Luke over the top rope." So in 2008, Russia took Georgia, took South Ossetia, a portion of the country of Georgia, not the state of Georgia. For some of you out there, probably wondering about that, because not all of us are college graduates, and only people with college degrees are really smart and would know that difference. Because I'm sure everybody with a college degree can point out where South Ossetia is on the globe right now, morons. So they took South Ossetia, and then in 2014 they took Crimea. So here's a question, and Luke, I'll give you a few minutes to ponder on this, because I'm going to ask you the question and I'm going to keep talking. What next? If we do nothing, if nothing is done, does that embolden Putin to take more? Right? Because Putin's a bully. At the end of the day, he's a bully. And when you let bullies, when you continue to give them your lunch money, what happens? They just continue their behavior. There's no consequences to alter that undesirable behavior. And so, okay, you just give them the territory, and they do. All right, so let's say the majority of the people in Brownsville, Texas, identify as Mexican and not United States citizens. Should we just go ahead and concede and give Brownsville back to Mexico? Should we just go ahead and give the portions of Texas where people might consider themselves more Mexican than American? Just go ahead and give that back to Mexico. Just be like, hey man, just give them back to them. Redraw the border. They like it. They like Mexico better. It's fine. I think there's some other things that can be done. Besides just conceding territory to Russia, because they're not going to stop at Ukraine, and they're not going to stop with the Donbass, and they're not going to stop with Crimea. They are not going to stop until they have taken all of Ukraine. And then they're going to set their sights on the next. And I think at a certain point, I don't think Russia is afraid of war with the United States. I don't think they are. I think they have enough leverage. They know they can take the Baltics, and yes, the Baltics are members of NATO, and that's an Article 5, attack on one NATO member is attack on all. But really, do we really think the rest of the NATO countries, if the United States says, all right, man, we're not going to do anything, and I mean that would just completely negate NATO, and it would become, basically, it'd be like the United Nations. It would be completely irrelevant. But do you think if Russia took, let's say Russia took Lithuania, Latvia right now, do you think the U.S. would push troops in there to kick the Russians out? Do you think if Russia took through Belarus the Suwalki Gap right now, do you think NATO would put an armed response in there and go to war with Russia over the Suwalki Gap? I don't think they would. I don't. I don't think they would. And I think Putin knows that. And so that's why the whole, like, just go ahead and concede concede Crimea and the Donbass, and let them just have it. That's why that doesn't work. And so, I mean, isolationism. It works until it doesn't. It works until Japan shows up in Hawaii, on December 7th, 1941.
There he goes again.
So I know. Here we go. I do like pushing your buttons.
Well, before Luke answers on the energy thing, so according to Eurostat, 30% of the European Union's petroleum oil imports and 39% of total gas imports come from Russia. For Estonia, Poland, Slovakia, and Finland, more than 75% of their imports originated in Russia.
Well, and here's another one. So if this whole thing backs off, right? If Putin starts to back off, and one of the ways I could see that possibly happening is some sort of sanction saying, okay, no Nord Stream 2. And maybe they would back off, and then Joe Biden takes all the credit because he's so smart for opening it up and then shutting it down. I mean, I don't know. The Nord Stream 2 thing is just one of the worst things. We already did a podcast on that. Now, Josh, answer your question, what's next for Russia? This is the Baltics. If they get what they want in Ukraine, it'll be the Baltics. And it's important to remember that Russia is much better at strategy than we are for many, many reasons. Like Roger said, you just keep one guy in power for 25 years. You got it made, man. Putin's been in power. They've had the same strategic objectives, the same strategic aim, and we're just bad at that. We've never been good at it. Not really. Not like the Russians are. Not like the Chinese are. So, when Josh says the Russians are going to take the Baltics, the Russians are going to roll through the Suwalki Gap. They don't need to do that. They're looking at, in my opinion, right now, today, they don't need to do that. They're looking at the long game. So they're not going to roll into Lithuania. They're going to roll into Estonia. They'll use some pretext like there's a little piece of Russia that's separated geographically from the rest of the country. The capital of that little area is called Kaliningrad.
Kaliningrad, yep.
So you've got Kaliningrad is nested right between all the Baltics, and it's physically separated from Russia. You can get there by sea, but that thing freezes up, so that's not dependable. You'll see some kind of pretext about, well, the Russian diaspora surrounding Kaliningrad, similar to Crimea and Donbass, they should be able self-determination and join Kaliningrad and be part of Russia again. That's how they'll do it. It'll be step by step by step like that. A hot war only if it's pushed, but if we don't do anything at all, it's like Josh says, yeah, just keep going and going and going. This is like a child, man. I mean, this is child psychology 101. Well, it's very easy to understand, my opinion. Now, what do we do? I don't know. Get better at the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, act. We are horrible at that. It would be nice if we had this agency, right? An agency within the U.S. government that focused on like strategic intelligence operations that was central, that could actually execute the OODA loop and do operations in a very efficient manner that weren't half-assed. It would be nice if we had some sort of agency that was intelligence and operations oriented that was like centralized. You know what I'm saying? That
And
would
they
be
did,
really cool.
and they did things in a covert manner.
Yeah. That would be great. And you're right, Josh. I mean, people don't realize that the Russian economy, and y'all look this up if you want, but the Russian economy is about the size of the economy of the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
They do not have
it's
a
tiny.
super strong economy. So they have less to lose by going to war over geography than we do. I laugh at Josh saying that I'm the isolationist talking about bringing Ukraine into NATO. But I hear what you're saying, Josh. You can't ignore it. Something has to be done. It has to, and it can't be political. And the media can't have their little nasty, dirty, grubby little fingers in it. And the reason Mexicans or people living in Brownsville who consider themselves Mexican aren't going to be able to cede into Mexico is because Mexico has no ass. Whereas people that are Russians in Crimea who want to be ceded, there's some ass behind that called Russia, a strategic competitor, strategic power with a bunch of nukes. Anyway, I think that Josh and I meet closer to the middle than most y'all realize. Maybe even more than Josh realizes. And Roger is usually the voice of
Whatever.
reason. Roger will chime in with something very intelligent sometimes. So I think now's the time, Roger.
Whatever. It was so much better in the chat. It was so much better in the text because you were being absolutely isolationist. You were straight, dude. You were straight. Like, we're not doing anything until I see the big red horde coming up the Mississippi. Like
Yeah.
that was all you.
Hey, in the Luke household, we don't say the CHINA word. No. We refer to that country as West Taiwan.
Oh, it was good. Yeah. No, I think we do see eye on this. It would have been nice if man, if only that guy who was the vice president in 2014, if him and his his boss could have given Russia or given Ukraine, I don't know, maybe a lot of lethal aid back then for them to help them deal with the Russian thing. I mean, used to we would go out and we give we give folks a bunch of Stinger missiles to handle the Russians, and some people would say that didn't turn out very well, but there for a while we man, we killed a lot of Soviets, which was not a bad thing.
So just real quick, and I think I know the answer to this, Josh. The only thing we really have to stand, the only thing we have to gain, the only thing we have stand to gain by pushing back against Russia is just counter expansion, right? Or not. What did they call it back in the day? What did they call it in the 80s? Keeping the dominoes from falling. It's called 70. I think it was the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm blanking on the national security strategy.
I know what you're talking. I know what you're saying. I can't remember what it was.
So is that the only thing we stand to gain? Is keeping those dominoes from falling?
I think in the short term, yes. I think in the long term, we gain more. It gives us the time because, like you said, we are bad about it because we only think of, our foreign policy is in 4 to 8 year increments. And so the longer the little Dutch boy can keep his finger in the dam, the longer it gives us to figure out that we need to pull our heads out of our collective asses and take a look at the long game. You're muted.
I know. Containment. It was called containment.
Yeah, containment doesn't work long term. It's good short term, but containment does not work long term. At all.
But you have to show
I would
balls.
argue. Sorry.
You have to show balls,
Agree.
right? I mean, you got to do it, or like Josh said, they just run wild, and it's like, okay, so it's right up there with Barry. Hey, here's my red line. Well, they crossed that shit, and you didn't do anything, right? And then you just keep pushing, and even now, as we talk and have this discussion, it's still mind-boggling to me that they went in and took Crimea, and like even the media, man, they weren't even like, they just kind of took Crimea. They were Russians anyway. You know,
It was insane. It was absolutely insane. And, we don't have to go, dude, we don't have to go to war to do this. Russia, and Luke's right. It's not going to be a bunch of T-82s and, everything on, across an LD that, takes the Baltics or anything like that. It's going to start with little green men, just like it did in Crimea. And it's going to be just a slow bleed, death by 1,000 cuts. But I tell you what, it wasn't long before they rolled armor after Little Green Men. It wasn't long before they started rolling armor into Crimea. And the one thing to make you think twice, you start taking javelins through the top of your tanks, it kind of makes you stop and be like, hold on, we got to reassess this shit. And it's one thing we got a lot of. We got a lot of javelins because we've had a stockpile of them and we ain't used them a whole lot in a long time.
and we don't have to fire one. We don't have to fire one.
Yeah, that's the point. It's such a mess over there. I understand what you're saying with what the ethnic majority is Russian and everything, but it is such a mess. Ukrainians, I guess, for lack of a better word, in Crimea and Donbass hate Ukrainians in Kiev, and vice versa. So you're looking like at an insurgency type of thing. No, I get you. I'm just saying. I mean,
Americans in Oklahoma
Ukraine
hate Americans.
I know.
In Northern Virginia.
Not like this. Not like, come on. You've been to the Balkans. I know, but yeah, I agree with Roger. It's like have the Ukrainians do it.
Yeah,
but you're talking.
100%.
You're talking a protracted insurgency that we do not need to be a part of, except for supplying the pro-Western government with lethal aid. 100%.
And we've got organizations that are trained to do that, right?
I mean,
I don't know. Do we?
We used to. I mean, that's why we were able to, really amplify that recent unrest in Cuba, where they pushed back and we were able to topple the communist regime. And we didn't, because that agency that we don't have was completely flat-footed and on its ass.
I ran into an SF captain a few years back who could not define foreign internal defense. He couldn't define it. And this guy was it was a Green Beret. No joke.
Because everybody, and you guys have seen this, just as much as anybody else, if not more, because there's been a damn identity crisis within the United States military, specifically Army Special Operations. You have special forces who are literally chartered to do unconventional warfare, foreign internal defense, who only want to go do direct action missions. You have National Mission Force, who is chartered to do one thing. They're out doing high-end conventional missions, and it's cats and dogs living together. But you're absolutely right. I saw it over the last however many years. I saw it time and time again. Is, hey man, so talk to me about resistance, and they'd be like, no man, we're doing direct action tonight. It's like, but you should be, either supporting an insurgency to overthrow a tyrannical government, or you should be working to counter an insurgency, right? That's what you should be doing. And they're like, no man, we do direct action. I was like, I don't think that's what JFK intended, bro. Like, I mean, I'll go back and read it, but I don't think that was his intent. But everybody wants to do this, that, and the other. It's like, hey, why don't you do the thing you were chartered to do? Just do your job. That's all you got to do. If I need to go find the neighborhood IED maker, guess what, man? I can send in a platoon from the 82nd. Easy.
So what do you think the appetite of the American people and the media, especially with, the debacle that happened in Afghanistan and Iraq and all that other good stuff. And now they've set this precedent, say, well, Trump didn't start any wars, which is good. So nobody wants to start another war. What do you think the appetite is of the American people to either arm our allies or even put boots on the ground somewhere?
No, dude, I think I got you. I got you on that. I think the appetite for way over half of the American public to lock down and give up their civil rights, we're right up there with what war will be like, what their appetite for war will be like if they're whipped up into a fear BS frenzy. That's what I think. I think the appetite now is not good. But once they're fed a line of fear and a line of BS, their appetite for war will be right up there with wanting to, lock down 14 days to slow the spread. That's what I think, Josh. I mean, what do you think?
No, I get what you're saying. And to your question, Roger, I think for the majority of Americans, I don't think nobody has an appetite for another war. Nobody has the American people don't have the stomach for it. But the American people don't get a vote. At the end of the day, the American people don't get a vote. The machine gets a vote, and it's like I typed in the chat. So in 2014, nobody wanted to step into Crimea and put boots on the ground there, so Russia wouldn't roll in there because I mean, we had ISIS was coming online. People were figuring out that hey, we have a problem in northern Syria and northern Iraq, and we also we were still in Afghanistan. So the war machine, that military industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about was like, hey, no man, we're at capacity right now. So that one's just gonna the Ukrainians are just gonna have to suffer. Now, I dude, you know I think now, I think you would have Washington saying, "Yep, it's our duty." You know, Ukraine, while they're not a NATO member, they are an ally. They did, they have sent troops, to support us ever since the Balkans. That I remember. I can't remember if they were involved in Desert Storm or not, but I know they were in Bosnia and I know they were in Kosovo. We had to stop them from beating up Albanians at one point. But that's neither here nor there. That's a story for another day. Don't get them all fired up about Srebrenica. They weren't on the right side of that one either.
No.
But it's I don't think the American public has the stomach for it, but they don't get a vote. We haven't gotten a say, and dude, we fucking went into North Africa, Libya. And the American people, guess what? We didn't get a vote on that one either. And that one turned out fantastic. About like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, where Americans are still trapped.
So with this one, I have a lot of mixed feelings on it, obviously. But I do find myself drifting to Josh's overall philosophy of people need to suffer. They just need to suffer. And I find myself drifting. I have to fight my way back, but it's like Europe has, we've said teat a lot in this episode, I think twice already, so we'll say it a third time. The European countries, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them, Western Europeans, especially members of NATO, have sucked on the American teat for a very, very long time when it comes to security. And it's like, part of me just wants to be like, okay, you guys, handle it on your own and see what happens and learn that really, really, really hard lesson. Either way, we're going to have to come in there and clean it up, right? Either way, we did it twice in one century. Do it once in this century, maybe twice. It's just like, man, I don't know. It's like I drift toward Josh's people need to suffer. And it's like, Europe, you want to look to the US, G7 saying there will be dire consequences if Russia invades Ukraine. G7 saying that. That means what dire consequences? Where are those going to come from? Those are going to come from Germany? Those are going to come from where? What? Italy? No, those are going to come from the States. The U.S. are the ones that are going to pay those or dole out those dire consequences. So it's like part of me just wants hey, Europe, handle your shit, man. I don't want to be isolationist either, though. I don't know. That's my thing.
And
so
Russia's
Josh,
Russia's already drawn the line in the sand, right? Because the next big one is to basically freeze their financial institutions, which would crush them. And they've already come out and said that, hey, you do that, that's a declaration of war. That's a hostile act.
Yeah, you right now, the spectrum of conflict, we are, in the competition phase. I mean, obviously, we can't come out and collapse their economy because then, then you've only given them one option, and when you leave them with only one option, then they're going to start pushing buttons, and lots of people are going to die. But you can't do nothing either. And I agree with Luke. It's definitely nuanced. But I just the whole thing of coming out and it getting leaked. Biden. So we're just going to tell Ukraine to concede that territory and just play nice. That that's what really started off, our text exchange. Um, it's just a garbage policy. Like, you can't do that, and to be, be the leader of the free world. That that's just absolutely insane to even think, and much less to come out and say. But it's a garbage ass foreign policy.
Maybe
So
we
we
just
do nothing. Go ahead.
maybe we just take them back into Afghanistan. Let them spend another decade or two there.
Good idea. But the only reason we do something is because it's Russia, right?
Yeah.
The only reason we do something in this case is because it's Russia and not like Burkina Faso or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can't, dude. If Burkina Faso wants to go up and take the Ivory Coast, all right, go knock yourself out, man. Nobody really gives a shit. But if you're Russia, and you're kind of a global player, then yeah, like you can't let that go unchecked.
Could you ever be friends with Russia, Josh? Is there anything that could happen to where you'd be like, yeah, I think Russia could be an ally?
If it was against China,
China.
maybe, but
China.
yeah,
Yeah.
but generally, I try not to work with communists.
But
Just
to bring
it's
it back
a thing,
to
it's a thing I have.
Roger, something he said, talking about the T word, Trump. I think a few times people within the Trump administration, Steve Bannon's one of them, who was very much pro, let's get Russia on our side. Let's stop playing silly games and get them on our side. Now, I'm saying that's a difficult one to swallow, and it would be It would be very, very long road to get there. But I'm telling you, with this China threat, I'm here to tell you, we got to start thinking outside of the box, because this one's not going away, and there's really nothing we can do to stop this steamroller. I mean,
Yeah,
other than thinking outside the box.
yeah. Oh, we do. We've worked with Russia in the past. I mean, we worked with them when they were the Soviet Union.
Ooh, and Russia hates China like I hate Dan Crenshaw. Ugh.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So I think in certain instances, sure, yeah, we could probably partner with Russia to do something, but only if it's against, I'll help communists kill other communists. Okay, we could do that. I can get on board with that.
But I think the bigger thing, like right now, especially during this last year, you can say there's been no strategy. Like, I don't even know what our foreign policy. We are so reactive to everything, And again, whether you liked it or not, with Trump, and you can say this with Barry, they at least came in like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do." Barry is going to go around the world and he's going to apologize to everybody, and whatever in the hell he's going to do, and Trump's going to come in and draw these lines. I mean, at least there was like some actually. Like, I don't even know what our foreign policy is right now with the current administration, other than just be reactive to whatever comes out. And then, hey, maybe it'll be some news that will, distract everybody from the shitty situation back home, and we can just focus on that if it's not our fault. I mean, that's the other motivation behind COVID, right? Because it's something that's still seen as Trump, and we don't talk about all the other things that that we've been talking about. So, with the Russia thing, let's go around the horn one more time, Josh. Got last thoughts, or any other topic?
Isolationist. Luke's an isolationist. That's all I have.
That's awesome. So I'll let the audience decide. Roger calls me a globalist and Josh calls me an isolationist. There's got to be a happy medium in there somewhere.
Well,
so as usual,
you're less of a globalist now that you're back in the States versus when you were over in Slovenia. It was different.
Yeah. I'm back here and I'm like, F the world, man. USA. So as usual, I'll give a shout out to Stratford Elks. They're heading to state. Congratulations, boys. High school football. Great game this last weekend. And shout out to Randall County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for listening, guys. And thanks for keep your powder dry. We're going to get with them in 2022. We're going to have one more before Christmas. So we're not saying Merry Christmas in this one. We're going to do one more and try to get it out to you guys. We got a special Christmas edition. Got a special gift to give to one of our members. So, Roger, I'll give it to you to close it out.
Well, there was a very important SCOTUS ruling on the Texas abortion case, and I tell you, if trying to read the tea leaves and this and that, Roe v. Wade is going down. That's going to happen. I think the Texas law is 6 weeks. I think it's once they can hear a heartbeat, viability, and you can't have the abortion. What they did tweak a little bit though was that as far as who you can sue, because the way the law was originally written was basically you could sue anybody involved. So you call Uber to take you to the doctor's office. You could sue the Uber driver. You could sue Uber. You could sue everybody involved, right? I think the way SCOTUS changed it, if I recall correctly, was, hey, look, you can really, your lawsuits are limited to medical personnel that were involved in the procedure or what have you. It doesn't necessarily extend out to insurance companies or whatever else. But with the 6 week thing, I guess the one conservative, I mean, both of you would probably know offhand, the one conservative that voted or that dissented went with the liberals was, of course, Roberts. He came out and like scolded the Supreme Court. He's like, oh, we got to be careful and whatever. But anyway, I think with that, and then you still got the Mississippi one that we talked about that I don't think we're going to get the ruling for till next year. I think the tea leaves are out there. It Roe v. Wade, I'd be surprised if it stands much longer than a year. So with that being said, again, want to direct everybody to our website, www.culperscanteencup.com. We'll try to get some blogs up there for you. Some of the small businesses, we've given a lot of people a lot of shout outs, or even if we haven't given you a shout out, hey, hit us up with an email, give us a link to yourself. Just, hopefully you guys don't suck. Don't send us if you have sucky products, don't send it to us. All right. We try to provide a place where it's like, hey, they're legit veterans. They're legit small businesses that are really trying to help the people out, believe in what they do. Because here's the reality. Yeah. Don't go woke, but here's the reality. We haven't test fired like every one of these products. Ginger Inferno's made us a couple of things. So I can actually say, okay, this is a quality flag. I have a picture of it, this and that. From the looks of it, Josh is eating about 5 or 6 pounds of Happy Balls. So other than those two things, we haven't test fired like every single product out there. So we're not necessarily saying we endorse it as a product as opposed to, hey, help out a small business, help out a veteran-owned small business or whatever. So if we haven't given you a shout out, you want to kick your business out there, definitely shoot us an email, drop us a line on Facebook or whatever. And I think that we forgot to, congrats, Josh. He's on. So did I tell you guys? So I started 75 hard. Josh is over here bragging because he's down 20 pounds. So every time he loses like 4 ounces, we get a text. He took a Fauci and he dropped 4 ounces. So he is looking pretty good. The sweatshirt's looking pretty baggy. So I'm gonna. Well, I already did. So I just started 75 hard. I'll give you. I'll keep you updated on my progress. Maybe by the the next recording, I've dropped a couple pounds myself. But we didn't give him a shout out. We didn't forget about him. But also check out Carlton Zeus. You can check him out on Apple Music or www.carltonzeus.com after you go to www.culperscanteencup.com. So that's it here from the cup. So keep your canteen cups tightly secured.